Episode 3 of the podcast. And today we are joined by our good friend and colleague in the fitness industry here in Kenya, Fleur Williamson. Fleur is in Mombasa. Is that right?
Bingo, yeah.
Bingo. Welcome to the podcast, Fleur.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor.
This is your first podcast?
It definitely is. You'll notice.
Oh, don't worry. It's just good chat here. And Fleur is a diabetic, and we are following on from our podcast last week where we were talking all about blood glucose, why it's important, how to monitor it. And we've known Fleur for a good long time now, and what, five years?
I think 5 years, because Skylar was just born. 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. And Fleur is a personal trainer. And are you a nutritionist, a sports nutritionist?
Well, you know what? I'm not like a registered. No, I would say nutrition coach at the very best.
Okay.
So not unknowledgeable, but I can't take that credit.
Okay, but you're studying sports nutrition as well.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to finish that now after a long break. And corrective exercise, we've done that.
Oh, so good stuff.
Yeah.
So Fleur is into training, and I mean, you've had your fair share of setbacks with your back issues, but we're not talking about that here. That could be another podcast.
That could be another episode or 3.
How to deal with injuries? Yeah, it could be. But we wanted to talk to you today about how you manage your diabetes through training and nutrition. But first, maybe give us a little history of yourself, of your journey with diabetes, when you were diagnosed, training, nutrition, all of that.
Yeah. Well, where shall I start? I think we don't know exact dates, but when I was a child, my mother already had a hunch that I might have diabetes because of my extreme thirst. And also, I often couldn't stop eating because that was like a type 2 diabetes, where if your sugar levels are high, you do anything to keep your body to be on that high. Otherwise, mentally and physically, you feel terrible. But back in the days, I was taken to the doctor several times, but they did one finger prick at that very moment. And that's it was 5.6, so you were sent off. And that is obviously not the test on how to see if you have diabetes or not, because eventually with the type 2, your blood sugars will go down after a meal or exercise. It's just not a correct way of doing it. And I actually always really struggled because I was very sporty, but I often lacked the energy and just had to keep eating or drinking to feel all right. And only when I became, when I got pregnant with my first child, it came out with vengeance. So I was hospitalized with, I think I was 25.6. So I wasn't even allowed to leave the hospital from the gynae's office. I was sent straight in on drips and everything. And that gestational diabetes, but it was actually, I had type 2, which they didn't know. And the pregnancy boosted it so far that this is quite a story. I became a type LADA, which is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults, which is a type between 1 and 2. So you can't live without insulin, but you're not quite type 1 yet, where your body cannot produce the insulin. And then there is such a thing they call the honeymoon period, which is where your body now changes to a full type 1. So the cells in your pancreas get attacked by your own body, and then you don't produce any insulin anymore. And that is my story. So type 1 has been now 12 years. Yeah, almost 12 years. And I guess there's 11 types of diabetes, guys. There's so many, but most of you know type 1, type 2, just gestational. I think those are the most common. And there is no straight answer on how to deal with diabetes, because I know quite a lot of type 1 diabetics. And all of us react in different ways, because 7 influences, don't even know all of them by heart, but they can mix in every way possible. So it's almost an infinite number of reasons why your blood sugars go up or down. So we know, for example, infection, stress, all those common ones, but sometimes you just don't know. And that is the really tricky part of diabetes. And I think especially a lot of young people that get diagnosed have an incredible mental struggle of accepting that disease, and that it means that you have to plan everything in your life, wherever you go, whatever you're going to do. For me personally, that wasn't so bad, because I was already in my 30s. And I think you're just, you don't just go off on a whim and you go clubbing somewhere, you're just a bit more, mentally more mature. So I think, especially for younger kids and teenagers, it will be a lot harder.
Yeah, no, I honestly didn't know there were so many types. That's blown my mind.
The autoimmune one is often referred to as type 1.5. I've heard 1.5 because it sits in between 1 and 2. And
it is called type 1.5 or LADA. That's correct. Yeah, there's just a lot of them, and sometimes people can just get it by being extremely ill, and for example, having used steroids. So then people have a laugh about malaria, for example. It's like whatever, but disease like things like malaria, if you get it several times, it can actually bring on this this attack on your own cells. So there's a lot of, there's so many ways how you can get it. But we all know the main type 2, which is like a pandemic, I think, now, because people, it's not always, definitely not their own faults, because it's hereditary. And so people are super skinny, are super fit, and they still get it. So it's, I always think it's quite unfair when people point at overweight patients or sedentary. It's quite unfair, and it's quite degrading. I think it's not something anyone wants, but I do believe there is so much you can do about it by diet and exercise.
Yeah, well, I think that's so interesting, because like I think Andy's been testing his glucose for a long time, and like when I put it up, like, but you're not a diabetic, you're not overweight. It's like that. Like you say, it doesn't matter, and you can, like you say, you can be fit, and then you can get it. So I think it's
I was competition lean, and my blood glucose was between 6 and 7. At points, fasted. So, and that's just a hereditary thing. So, so for me,
because your body was under stress, maybe.
That's why it was so high. But even when I was fed, like my blood glucose, if I'm not careful with how I eat my carbohydrates and at what times, it's very easy to be over, nearly 6 quite often on waking.
Yeah, it's not too bad, to be honest.
It's not too bad. It's mine is more to do with the T3 cells not absorbing the glucose properly, rather than related. So and I had genetic testing, and it's been found in genetic testing on me. But it's harder to spot. Because everyone thinks type 2 comes when you're overweight, as you just said. But reality is, some people just they can do poor lifestyle choices, but there is a hereditary element the genetic component.
Very big, yeah, especially type 2. Type 1 is not hereditary. It is type 2, actually, which is very sad. But, when you speak about time in range, anyone that doesn't have diabetes and they put food in their mouth, their blood sugars will go up. And then you produce insulin and it will come down again. So if you test your blood after, like Leon had ugali yesterday, your blood sugars after an hour or even 30 minutes will be raised. Yeah. And that's no reason to panic. So you test the 2 hours after your meal. If then it should be settled by then. If it doesn't, then, then there's sort of an issue. And that is how they test. They test you when you're, empty stomach. They give you glucose water test before and after, and they do that several times. It's quite a miserable test. You've done it, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What came out of it, like pre-diabetes or?
Yeah, so the numbers were pre-diabetic numbers, and it was like you're borderline pre-diabetic. But I've now got I've done the test since, and it's way under control now. As in, like I got it down to normal the last time I did a test, so we were happy. Yeah. But just have your glucose, do your tests, small glucose water, and
it takes forever. It's really miserable to do, actually. But it's good. At least you know about your body, what you can do, and sometimes if you want to really, like a heavy meal, it's a thing with type 1 diabetics. People say, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. And that is not how it works, because we don't produce insulin. That would mean we can't eat anything ever. So we can eat, and that's why we use long-acting insulin and short-acting insulin. For me personally, it's very different than to many people. I get quite depressed if I use a lot of short-acting insulin. It doesn't really work for me. But there's plenty of people that do eat the burger with the white bun and with the chips and whatever, and they carb count. They're really good at carb counting. You're like a magician when you're diabetic. And they know how to inject for that, and they're totally fine. So there's no such thing as you cannot eat that. As well with type 2, it's different. You should actually really, because people say you can cure it. You can never cure it, but you can make it sort of dormant. So you can keep it under control. And that takes quite a lot of discipline, of course. But diet and exercise is absolute key to keeping that under control and prevent from the most, horrendous complications later on in life. And that's why it's a sneaky disease, because you don't see the same, how you said, you don't see the results of bad management straight away. But once you get nerve damage and damaging your eyes, that's when you're too late. Yeah. And that's why I do think, with a population that is, the obesity rate is quite low. I just say that, explanation on schools, like in information available, what it can do to you. But when you're young, as a kid, do you care? No. Not really, huh? That's it.
No. This is quite funny. We have this discussion with Kaya. Yeah. We have this discussion with Kaya because Kaya's nan, her mum's mum, has diabetes and she's blind in one eye. When she broke her leg when she was visiting Kenya, it took her over 6 months for that bone to heal because of diabetes. Yeah, she's pretty bad. But she's really good at managing her insulin nowadays. But on things like flights, because you never know how much food they're going to feed you on a flight. So she's reduce the portion size. So I remember her coming and she thought she was going to get a full meal. And they gave her like a sandwich, but she had already taken her insulin. Yeah. She went low blood sugar, fell over in the airport and broke her leg.
Oh my God! But did she not carry sweets, or because I
She
was
has
very
that, but I think she
dexterous.
used too much. She used too much insulin
Yeah,
because she thought she'd have a full meal on the plane.
yeah.
And
Yeah, but
because
usually if you get a hyper from too much insulin, sorry, I might be we carry dextrose or Haribos, any really fast.
Banana, some chocolate.
Yeah, banana is too slow. Chocolate is too slow, way too slow. So you need to have really dirty sugar, like boiled sweets. Haribos are great, fast-acting dextrose, because chocolate, it releases way too slow. But that's another interesting thing, is what she had is a hypo, and therefore broke her leg. A lot of diabetics, if you don't manage your blood sugars well, you become insensitive, is that the word, to feeling the hypos coming. So if you don't manage your blood sugars well, the highs and the lows become less recognizable. So I know when I get a low, I get just before that quite euphoric. And I start talking a lot, and I'm like really excited. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I feel my whole body crashing down and jittery and shaking and sweating, and it's really awful. But maybe what she had is indeed that she didn't feel it coming, because it can come up.
And I think, and as she's got older, I noticed this because we were in Dublin. Although she's my ex-wife's mum, we still get on quite well. So we were in Dublin together last summer, and you just see it, like, middle of the night, she'll suddenly be walking around the house, and you're like, all right, let's get you some sugar. Let's put something into you.
My heart goes out to parents that have to deal with a child with type 1 diabetes. It must be the most horrendous thing in the world. I don't think you'll ever sleep again. And the good thing is now we have CGMs, constant glucose monitoring. Those where, remember, you guys have seen it on my arm.
Yeah, cool.
My glucose is measured every minute, and it goes straight onto my Apple Watch. I can see it trending. It gives out alarms when your blood sugar rises too fast or it's going to drop. And I think that is like a savior for people with diabetes. And I never learned more about my own body than using a CGM. Unfortunately, I can't get them in Kenya. And I used to get them from UK. However, when you buy them there, you need to sort of show a pass that you're actually diabetic, or they become so expensive on like Amazon. But I wish we could get them here, because it would be extremely interesting for your research as well to do that. It's absolutely phenomenal. So you get track of 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, well, for a month if you want to.
We talked a bit about it last week. It's like the technology now for tracking, the wearable tech, is just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I learned, because we are taught that, don't eat too much fruit. Well, obviously, bananas, they're not great for us. But watermelon, I started testing food once I got the CGM. So I would have watermelon, and I could see this spike like go up. And I didn't do anything, no insulin, no nothing. Within an hour, it was completely gone. So you learn so much about, you can read up about glycemic index and stuff, but everybody is quite different. So a good example is, guys, I'm at the coast. A lot of diabetics, their blood sugars rise in the heat. Mine plummets really badly. So the long-acting insulin I use twice a day is too much when I go to the coast. So I start reducing intake already in Nairobi, because the heat somehow, I don't know why, makes my blood sugars drop. And with a lot of diabetics, they're worried to go to tropical countries because their sugars spike so high. So
I think heat has a stress response to the body. If your body finds it hot, and we don't know how our bodies deal with stress, glucose, so you're monitoring it like you are, and you can actually see the response that the heat has on your body. And everyone's different, I suppose.
Yeah, it's you know what, it's just like an absolute lottery. That's why with time you really learn about your body. You really learn, I know how to drink a glass of wine without issues. So I know how my body works. So I'm not panicked about it, but I wouldn't drink a vodka, Coke or something. But you figure it out. And just like with exercise, for example, when you get the second burn, that can be quite dangerous with diabetes, because when is that second burn clear? How many hours after? 8 hours or something?
The second
you burn in, it's a second burn in your body. So if you do a heavy weight session, your body is burning energy, of course. If it's a heavy session, I think between 6 and 8 hours later, your body does some sort of a second burn. And that is when we need to be careful, because then we get hypos. Our blood sugars suddenly drop too fast. That is something to look up, actually. Quite interesting to see in your...
heard of that, Fleur. That's really interesting.
Yeah. There are quite a few diabetic fitness accounts of bodybuilders. And then they have actually taught me all of this, and it all makes perfect sense, because I didn't know this either. But I guess you won't notice it.
Yeah, bodybuilders are very experimental. That's the good thing. So if you find one who's diabetic, they'll have done everything, played around with all the insulin. Just, I guess
it's good to listen to Amp Bales for that. Amp Bales is a British bodybuilder. The only problem is his Newcastle accent's even hard for me to understand. So let alone people in Kenya.
Oh, that's too funny.
But he's very...
but also supplements and diabetes is a big thing. So if you want to take supplements when you're a heavy gym user, not everyone can just process, because protein, even though it's protein and not a carb, it still raises our blood sugars. So this is, there is no straight answer, because everybody literally is so different. But there are some really good guides out there on how to use supplements and how to deal with them as a diabetic.
So with your insulin, so you take that twice a day, and then just take us through a day of, if you were going to train, how would you plan it? Because it sounds like you have to plan things.
Okay, so I use long-acting insulin when I wake up, when I go to bed. So it's roughly twice in 24 hours. That is usually the same amount, because that is my basic insulin to keep my blood sugars fairly low. So then I wake up, I check my blood sugars, and usually when I rise physically, my body rises, or even before I wake up, my blood sugars start going up. It's called dawn phenomenon. So from about 4:35, my blood sugars start rising. If I know I'm going to train around 8 or 9, I don't do much about my high blood sugars, because they're only super high, maybe 7.5 or something. So I just train it off, because I don't like to eat before training. Maybe have some black coffee, but that's it. If I don't train, I'll inject for that number, but it's too high. So you want to try to be around, 5.5 for me is perfectly fine. Between 4.8 and 5.8, I'm super happy. So then I've trained. After my training, I wait a little bit for the body to settle down, and I check again. If it's cardio, the chances are quite high that my blood sugars have dropped a lot. So I have to eat to come back up. When it's weight training, I'm often a little bit high, because my body was under stress. So usually with weight training, I come out around 7.5. So then, of course, I'm still hungry. I eat and I inject. So I've got the 7, let's say I'm almost 7.5. and I'm going to eat. So then I calculate the amount of insulin I need for that particular meal. Plus, if I'm on 7.5, I need 2 units of fast-acting insulin to come back into that range where I want to be. Sounds a bit complicated, I think, but this is sort of like the whole day goes. So now it's lunchtime. I check my blood sugars before I eat. Then I look at what I eat. What is, like Andy says, I need to see on my plate what's there. I have exactly made that same mistake of once on safari going to a buffet, and I was like, oh, that looks good. But I put in like 10 units of insulin, and all the potatoes and the rice was finished. Oh. And I had a complete panic attack there. So everything, every meal I check before, I inject for that. You know, sometimes I let it go if I feel totally fine. And if I feel a bit like meh, then I check again. But so for me, anger is the first sign of having high blood sugars. Incredible, infuriating anger, where you say really horrendous stuff to people that you don't mean. It's really horrible. And with the low, like I said, I get really chatty and really busy, a bit erratic almost. So then if I've done this heavy, let's say heavy workout, which I haven't done in a long time because there are other issues, but then I would know that around, let's say, you know, I trained at 7 or 6. I know at around 4, I'm expecting a dip in my blood sugars. So I sort of monitor that and might have a snack, like, you know, just small bananas or whatever, like slice of toast, nothing too drastic, but I would make sure that I'm ahead of that's what's going to happen. And that is actually how the whole day goes. So everything you put in your mouth needs to be monitored. And admittedly, you don't always do that because you get tired of it. Yeah. You're like, I can't be bothered anymore. And that is what a lot of, you know, younger kids get. It's what is it called? I forgot the name, but there's actually a name for it, where you get so tired of doing it that you let it go, and then your blood sugars go out of range, and it's not that easy to get them back. You can't say, I've done a month of sort of picking and eating and not doing well, I'm going to inject and now I'm okay. It's a very fine balance to keep it all under control. And sleep, for me, is one of the most important things, is sleep, because I definitely have a lot less energy than, well, not supposed to say, but like a normal person, you know, a person without diabetes. So sleep and exercise. If I don't exercise, everything falls apart like a house of cards. So I have got to exercise every day, even when I'm not well. I'll still go for a walk or go for a really slow swim. And I really don't want to, but I will do it, because the ramifications of not doing it are not worth it.
And
it's like a constant management. So it's just constantly managing your life and constantly managing from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, just trying to be as optimal as you can to be able to have a decent day.
Alive.
To stay alive. To even just have a normal a day that you can, you know, yourself through, not, you know.
Well, you know what, Andy, it's a really good question, because like we earlier said, mental health has a lot to do with diabetes. And I've never really suffered that much that I felt, you know, okay, I've not been happy, but I've never gone into depression from it, or I just thought, let's just deal with it and have fun, you know, let's live life. That has been my take on it. But that doesn't mean that a lot of people can't do that. And a lot of people don't have all the possibilities that I have, like going to gyms and going for swims and walking out of the door, because maybe, you know, they have kids and a job that doesn't allow them to do that, and or the costs of diabetes, of insulin in Kenya is insane, and that's another thing you should be grateful for. And therefore, I don't have that depressive side in me. I just don't have it. But I think acceptance of the disease is the only and the first step to the management. I think that is actually a sad truth. Acceptance, that's it. And then you can work out how to deal with it. Sorry?
No, it's just every podcast we do just makes me realize how almost below par all education systems are, because you don't get taught, I guess, exercise. Like even in school, when it's about lifestyle diseases, you just learn the names, nothing else. So, like from your perspective, if you were to change and sort of introduce, how would you go about teaching the younger kids so that even if they have it, they can accept it easier? Or just let it in case they have someone at home, parent, brother, and because it's
this is such a great question, Leon, because this is actually what I'm starting this year. This is my new business. So I'm currently studying as diabetes educator.
Nice.
Because what I'm going to do in Nairobi is when people get diagnosed, they go to an endocrinologist and they get a diagnosis. They teach you how to deal with diabetes. You get your medication, and there you go. So what I want to do, if someone in a family gets diabetes, doesn't matter who's type 1 or 2, I come in and teach that whole family on how to deal with it, and learn how to eat better, learn how to read labels of food, learn what half an hour walk can do to you, learn how to read your body better by feeling hypos and hypers come up. So I think that guidance is lacking here. And let's say if it's a brother or father, doesn't matter, because now the whole family needs to live with it. And kids need to know, I want to be able to show examples that you have type 1 diabetics in the Olympics, that you have fantastic athletes, bodybuilders galore with type 1 diabetes, and that they're not just labeled, diabetic, which has a bad name, because I quite like the jokes personally, but when they said, if Pete has 12 Mars bars and 16 Milky Ways, what has he got? Oh, he's got diabetes. That joke, I personally find that really funny, but a lot of people find that offensive. But yeah, so this is what I want to do, and for families, but also for schools. Teaching children how to eat better and how to eat healthy, and not in like sort of the upmarket kind of way, but with local produce from Kenya's soil. Mm-hmm. So we don't need to go and get goji berries, pomegranates, but we can have a really healthy diet fit for diabetics and anyone, actually, because our diet is actually like yours should be, all macros should be there, and all everything is actually the same, but we don't always do that, do we? So this is my goal.
I think you touched on a good point though, and this is what will work really well, is the education at schools as well. Because I actually remember when I first discovered diabetes is when a art teacher, Mr. Dupre, I still remember him, he went hypo during an art lesson.
Oh wow.
And he started talking about Yogi Bear. He was talking absolute nonsense. So, so someone had to go get another teacher, and Mr. Wellington, who was my house tutor, he was lucky. He was diabetic as well. He made us run to the tuck shop, get a Mars bar, run back and fed him miles. And then we had to have an assembly on diabetes. And actually, we learned quite a lot in that assembly. Mr. Wellington took it. He was diabetic, explained it all. Because actually, at that point, we didn't really know a lot. Yeah, we were just kids. Yeah, we didn't know anything about diabetes.
Yeah.
We just thought he was just a bit crazy. We were like,
I've got these, medical emergency bands, and it just, in case you fall down, that at least the hospital knows what's going on. But I've got one when I was a lot younger. I had one that says, "I'm not drunk, but I'm diabetic," because you can start talking like a complete imbecile, and that's where my husband's got some good stories as well, where I'm just screaming, "Give me the bears! I want the bears! I want all the bears!" And I was talking about gummy bears.
Yeah.
Because, what do you call those? The Haribos.
Yeah.
Because that is all I needed to come out of this. It was absolutely really crazy. But I also think, for example, like gyms should know what it actually means as staff, even though you have some liquid glucose or something, that pour it in someone's mouth, because it can happen to actually anyone, what I mean. So it would be, I think, for such an enormous worldwide disease, there's very little known about people. They just know, it's got something to do with sugar.
Yeah.
You're just like, like a fat bastard or something where you have it.
They should add that to first aid curriculum, because also the first aid curriculum is a bit crappy. It's same.
100%. 100%.
Not really changed.
But we taught us it in the police.
Yeah.
Actually, because when you deal with drunks on the street, actually, you've got to determine whether they're drunk or actually having a mental health episode or a diabetic episode. So we taught us that in the police, actually, when dealing with people in the street, check for signs of diabetes first, rule that out before arresting someone for being drunk. Let's just that point first.
I guess it's like
it's actually really good that they do that. I think that's fantastic. But like in the UK, for example, you always have your card with you. Also, I think Andy, you'll know this, because I think you can only drive if they stop you and your blood sugars are too high or too low. I think they'll take you off the road straight away.
Yeah, technically, if you have got unmanageable diabetes, you're meant to tell the DVLA, and then they're meant to actually suspend your license until the doctor writes a letter to say you've got management of your blood sugars.
Yeah, I think they check your HbA1c, which is the average of your blood sugars over the last 3 months. Have you done this, Clea?
Not yet.
So you go to the clinic, it's fantastic. Go to the clinic, they just draw a tiny bit of blood, they put it in some centrifuge, and then within minutes the exact average number of your blood glucose.
Wow.
So that is very interesting to use as well. And this is what they use for the driver's license. So if they don't pass the HbA1c test under, I guess, 5.8 of 6 or something, they're not allowed to drive anymore. That's quite serious.
Yeah, well, it is like, if you're on a highway and then you have if you go hyper, serious.
Claire's Nan car's the best though. You go into a car, you open the glove box, it's full of sweets. Yeah, brilliant. It's like
travel sweets.
That is crazy. I guess the Kenyan health and even fitness industry it's like the gap is so huge. Because it's like, training, nutrition, diet, lifestyle diseases, and then blank space, and then I guess what your doctor teaches you in between those, even in lifestyle diseases, diabetes, therapy, mental health is just a huge gap.
Yeah, it really is. And like, I think that's why, even if you're not diabetic, like Fleur, you have to take it to the extreme. You need to know, like, before, after meals, before training, after training. But I think that just shows how important it is on even if you don't have diabetes, like the effect of not sleeping, the effect of stress on your body, and the importance of, nutrient timing to, enhance your life. And like we were saying before the podcast started, like if you've got your, continuous glucose monitor, you can just check and you can be like, oh yeah, if I'm going to train, then my blood sugar's a little bit low now. I could, I'd probably train better if I had XYZ to eat now. And I think that that constant glucose monitor is so interesting, and that's such a shame that you can't.
The cool thing is with the CGM, the constant glucose monitor, is that it works on your phone and on your watch, but on your phone you can put in every day when you train which time. So then the CGM creates trends for you. So by that trend that is over 90 days, it starts, you can actually see what happens exactly with the exercise trend. So that is absolutely phenomenal knowledge. And I think especially for bodybuilders as well. It's just absolutely amazing.
I think generally, as you said earlier, everyone should look at a nutrition like diabetics do. As in, when do you need high blood? You need blood glucose higher levels to train. You need that energy. But actually, the other times you want to get them to a manageable level. It's like what we talked about last week with the nutrient timing. I always say save your carbohydrates for around the training window and reduce them at other parts of the day because you're not so active. So and get that blood level stability. Everyone should have stable levels, regardless of diabetes or not.
And you and Andy, you will know what if you are not balanced, how tired you get, how much energy you lose by not being in range. So they call it TIR, time in range. That is what diabetics need to aim for. That you want to be 90% time in range, for example. So you don't have to be perfect, but guys, like with everything, there has to be a balance in life. So there's mental health, physical, but you also need to we have to now and then let go and say, what? I'm just going to eat up Magnum ice cream. I do not care, but it has to be the one-off because then it doesn't completely throw you off track. But so with me, the bad thing is I can't really do that because once I go off track, Clea knows this, it is really hard for me to go back on because once I had that sort of sugar high in my brain, I just want it. It's almost like a drug addict. I just want to be there again. So I really need to go fasting afterwards and then I'm back. But like I said, everyone is very different. And I'm sure if anyone with T1D hears this, they're like, well, for me, it just works very different. So.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I think it's so interesting maybe as well for you, because you know how to track your calories and macros. Does that help you when you're trying to figure out how much insulin to have, or how do you calculate that? That sounds
you know what, there is, so you need to, but you know how difficult it is to get how many carbs are in a meal. That if you make mashed potatoes, like how much are you going to weigh it exactly? I've stopped doing that personally a long time ago. So I think there's formulas for it, but the formula differs per patient. So I know, for example, that let's say I'm 7 and I want to go down to 6, that I need 1 unit of a certain type of insulin. So I know if I look at my meal, so if I have 2 slices of brown bread with butter and cheese, I know I need 6 units. But when you just get diagnosed, you need to calculate that. But they have apps for that now. Okay. So your endocrinologist tells you the ratio, and then you have to start counting the carbohydrates in your meal. Then you use the formula from your endo to figure out how many units of insulin you use. So for me, it's pure experience. I can look at a plate and I'm like 95% right. I know what I need.
Yeah.
But like I said, I try not. My aim is really to not use too much insulin because it just doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make my body happy. And some people can do it. But besides depression, which is for me the main reason not to inject so much or try to use as less as possible, can you imagine how expensive it gets as well for a lot of people? So if you are not too fortunate in life and you need to buy diabetic supplies, you're looking at, I just bought 5 pens of fast-acting insulin yesterday, and it was 12,000 shillings. Wow. So if you use a lot of those, you use 1 pen every week, then it's going to get very expensive, So that's another, for me, also a reason to not go completely mad. And then you need your test strips. And constant glucose monitor is about £50 every 2 weeks. And we're not insured. You can't be insured for diabetes. So everything is straight out of your pocket.
Wow.
Yeah. So and the needles. And it adds up. There's so many costs.
I know when Claire's nan comes to Kenya, because she's Kenyan, she's got family here, she brings insulin pens with her and gives them to family members with diabetes because the cost in Kenya is so astronomical. Like she has loads at home because she gets some through healthcare, and so she has packs of them. She's like, it's okay. She works at the NHS. It's fine.
Okay.
But no, the fact is, it's just mental in Kenya, like the cost of things like that, where there is actually probably a lot of undiagnosed people with diabetes as well, purely because even getting diagnosed is expensive.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So the harsh truth is they won't live long, because I don't think I would live much more than 2 to 4 weeks without insulin. I'll be dead. So this is how serious it is. And I've got my cousin Dave, actually cousin my husband, and he's a sweetheart. He comes out and he goes to all his diabetic mates and he fills up all their excess supplies and meters and strips and insulin. And I'm like, yeah, whatever brand, I'll take it. So at least I don't, it's like worth 50,000 shillings of stuff he brings. So then you're more prone, or more tempted to change the brand of insulin if it's for free. It's true. But it is crazy here, and it's really a sad situation, actually.
Especially when you look at how much insulin costs to produce. The cost of actually production of insulin is so cheap.
Yeah. And it was once made for the people, because the guys that invented insulin didn't patent it, so it could be free for all. And then, of course, over the years, that changed, and now it's Big Pharma that owns it. And I think people in the States have it much worse than us. That is like $1,500 a month to keep their kids alive, and they go on trips to Canada to actually get more affordable insulin. It's really mad. And Walmart has an insulin made, it's like a generic insulin, but it doesn't always work on your body because there's so many types and so many ways that your body can react to it. Yeah, so that is a really big thing. But then I heard Mark Cuban has started. Did you hear this?
That's what I was
amazing
looking for.
Yeah, so he started this, what do you call it? A chemist, massive, and he takes maximum 15% profit. And which is so like leukemia drugs that were $15,000 per shot, for example. They're now $300 or something. Yeah. So he's going to change this big pharma world, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's needed. My goodness, that just, and I guess for you, I mean, you weren't diagnosed until you were pregnant.
Yeah.
And
that's why I always have such cold feet. So my hands and my feet, they're always like ice cubes, and it's definitely nerve damage.
yeah.
They're just so cold. Yeah, because slowly, it's never been that bad, because as a kid, you're super active,
Yeah.
you know, and I played hockey, and what did I not do? You know, you play sports in schools, but I've always been too high for many, many years.
Yeah.
And thank God the damage isn't too bad, but it's definitely there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Gosh, that is scary. And I mean, if anyone follows Fleur, I mean, you always post like the best food, and I love that. You know, it just shows like you can still have delicious food. And I know yours is, I mean, you're not keto, but you're generally
low carb.
Yeah.
Yeah, low carb, because that works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, that works for me, and I can't stress that enough. That doesn't person work for someone else, but it gives me more energy to be low carb. I will never cut out a whole food group, because I think that's asking for more issues, more intolerances. And what if you fall off the wagon and suddenly you want to eat a loaf of bread? What is going to happen to your body, you know? But yeah, no, I definitely strive for good food, because I love food. Who doesn't, right?
And I just think, like you said, like, first of all, there's acceptance. And then, you know, your whole approach, I love it. Like, you've been through so much, but you're so positive about it. And, you know, you're like, I'm just going to take the best of it. Like, you train, you walk, you swim, you're active, and you have delicious food. And I mean, honestly, I was telling my mum we were podcasting with you. She's like, oh, I've missed Fleur on Instagram.
Oh, bless.
My mum is 70, but she's still on Instagram. And she says she's
such a diva. I love her in her car with her red lipstick and her big shades. It's like, oh, there she is, Moina.
It just shows, like, yeah, you've got to accept it. And then I think, like, your new business that is so needed.
Yeah, I always wanted to do this, but obviously all the back surgeries stopped a lot, and I'm also convinced that all these surgeries, it's all got to do with diabetes, because I had a back of an 85-year-old, and it's for someone that's done so much sports in a lifetime, you know, there's no other way than that is related.
Yeah.
You know, and the healing, I'm convinced. So now it's time to claim back the life.
Yeah.
And go for it. Yeah. And it would be nice to give something back as well.
Yeah, it will help a lot of people.
It really will. And just having you as a resource as well, I think, for everyone, you know, because I mean, we're in the fitness industry, and, like, you know, there are loads of bodybuilders who are diabetics, and and you know, you can just, it's so nice to see someone like you, like, living your life and just showing people how to do it, how to manage it, and, you know, just like tips and tricks, and just knowing that everyone is so different, and, you know, like what you've learned, and I guess just experimenting as well. That seems to be
if you have that chance to experiment, I would highly recommend that. And just give yourself the time to find out which foods work for you. And what happens is, you know, I really wish we could get the CGMs here, Eat Ready, available. I think it would change lives so much, but that's something we should. I've even asked certain companies that bringing diabetic meters and God knows what, and they're like, oh, that's too expensive. And I said, well, I think people will pay for it, because if you look at the cost of your test strips from EcoCheck, that wasn't cheap. Must have been 3,000, 4,000 per box.
Yeah, test strips are expensive.
And I use like 10, 12 strips a day. Figure out.
Wow.
That's why I don't buy those. I just buy the cheapest one. They're called Encore Plus. They're really cheap.
Good to know.
I'll let you know. I'll text you later.
Perfect.
Also, buy anything diabetes-wise. Just buy it at the coast. In Mombasa, it's about a third of the price of Nairobi.
Wow.
Nice.
That's a free advice here.
Okay.
This is cheap.
Send them via Wells Fargo. G4S.
Yeah. But I also
nice.
think, and like for you, like having that CGM, because I mean, do you get worried like at night that your blood sugar will drop and you won't know?
No, I'm not really.
No.
I've had issues in the past, and people get that. The CGM nowadays is so advanced that it starts beeping when you're too low, too high. So it will wake you up. You can also link the CGM to your partner's phone, or your mum's, or your dad's.
Yeah.
So they
That's such a
get
good idea.
alerts. The only tricky thing is like, I like to wear my CGM here on my forearm, because they say it puts at the back, but it's so easy to rip it off. And that 50 pounds really hurts when it comes off. You're like, that is just not cool. So I have it somewhere so I see it. So bra straps or sports bras. But if you lie on it in your sleep, it pushes in your fat or your tissue and whatever, and it will read a low. So you can wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 1.2. But it's actually CGM pressing in your arm. So that was another thing where I ate a whole bag of Haribos and there was nothing wrong with me. So now I'm way too high in the middle of the night, So it's all learning, trial and error, fall in, get up again. But it's, you know what, we're still alive.
Yeah.
I mean, we can still do almost anything we want. The only thing is you can't have a clutch bag when you go out because you've got too much supplies with you. But otherwise, it is, what? So that is my aim, to teach people that you can have a really nice life with diabetes, and there's not much that you can't do. Nothing has to stop you from doing anything. No, especially not with the the possibilities at the moment with the CGMs.
Yeah. And who knows what other technology will come? Because I remember when you were wearing that, and it even was on your like Apple Watch as well.
Yeah.
I think that's just incredible. For us, geeky anyway, we'd love something like that. What's the optimal food for us?
I haven't even got into insulin pumps yet. Yeah. You'll love that.
Well, maybe we'll need to get you back for a second episode on all of that, because this is so interesting. Like, honestly, I didn't know that there were so many types.
Oh yeah, and they're just all so different. There's also I think the worst that someone I've met, maybe I shouldn't classify it as such, but it's called brittle diabetes. Brittle diabetes is not an official diabetes, but it is when you are diabetes, you cannot in any way control it. So it doesn't matter what you do, even if you eat steamed broccoli all day and protein, and you do a walk, it can be sky high, it can drop like the wind, and that is the most dangerous diabetes I've learned of from someone in Kenya actually who had it, and that was insane. That is so scary. That touch wood, I'm so lucky that I can completely control my body, or I would say 90%.
Yeah.
But it is interesting actually to read up on it. But one of the best sites is I think it's diabetes.co.uk. It's incredibly informative. Have a look at that.
Okay, yeah.
And I follow a lot of these accounts on Instagram as well. And it's like, because there's no education here once you've been diagnosed, thank goodness you can find it now on Instagram and on anywhere on the internet, and it's just educate yourself. That's the way forward now.
It's kind of like Leon was saying earlier, like, we're all personal trainers here. What do we learn about diabetes? Nothing. And it's like, again, I think that's because it is so common. It's like that should be something that we're a bit more aware of, since anyway, I think to training and fitness and training other people, you should be more aware of blood glucose and like what levels to be in, how it affects you, things like that. So it really does need to be more education. And I was actually surprised when I did all these courses that
I mean, maybe the word was mentioned once, you know, in a personal trainer thing, but there wasn't much to it. But I'm convinced if you educate yourself, you know, or become a diabetes educator, that you could actually, this is what I want to do, train people as well with diabetes, to show them what to look out for and what to be careful of, and just be a guidance so you don't have to do it all on your own, because it is scary. It can be very scary. You know, it's feelings when you get really high and you feel, you know, when you get a hypo, you basically don't have enough oxygen in your brain. So to make the right decisions to then save yourself, then that becomes much harder. So if you can train with someone that understands your condition, and you can go hard always, and you can actually, you know, follow a fantastic program, because you know you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that someone is there to look after you and knows how to monitor you. And it doesn't have to be that hard, I think.
Yeah.
It could be a good part of an tiny small extra course, you know, for trainers to follow that.
I think so, because there are so many diabetics, and I think like what you're going to do is so needed. And again, it's just like the mental health, like you've chosen a positive outlook, but so many people will feel like really alone and isolated, and, you know, maybe want to train, but are like, I just don't know how. And
oh goodness, yeah, because I have that diabetic fitness journey page, and especially on Facebook, it exploded.
Yeah.
And I get so many questions like, oh my goodness, am I allowed to exercise? And I'm like, you've been diagnosed. How on earth has no one told you that exercise is the key for your happy long life? Yeah, they don't even know. Am I allowed to go walking? Well, it's the most important thing, to move that body. And it's quite, you know, people just, I've noticed it myself in Nairobi, that doctors don't have time for you, because they have time to explain to you the absolutely, you know, necessary bits of it. But otherwise, there's nothing, no advice whatsoever.
Wow.
So hopefully we can change that.
Yeah, well, I think, honestly, I think you're perfect for that. And it will be, when it's up and running, you just let us know.
Yeah,
you will get the word out there, because I really think that's needed. And like, again, even if you're not diabetic, it just shows like how we were talking about, like, take a walk after your meal, how that can help so much. And just, you know, being aware of, even if you're not, you know, pricking your finger and checking your blood glucose, of how certain foods make you feel, because we're striving for optimal here, not just feeling normal. You want to feel your best. And I think it's always, if you can know your body more, you're able to live a better life. And I mean, for you have to, that, you know, to save your life, you've got to know so well. I mean, we're fortunate enough, we don't have to do that, but, you know, we still enjoy doing that. I mean, Andy, you I guess have to, in a way. And no, really interesting, Fleur. I've learned so much in this hour with you, and we'll put your IG handle as well in the show notes. And so you say you're bigger on Facebook.
It's a diabetic fitness journey. I don't know. Yeah, you know what? It's just for me. Mm-hmm. Actually, I use it mainly for myself. Okay. Because it keeps me in check. Yeah. Oh my God, posted anything around? Let's do something good. I'm always a bit still in between. Like, feel a bit ashamed if I post too much. I always feel like over exposing myself. But I do enjoy the food side. And if anyone can pick up on an easy meal that's tasty, that works with your diabetes, I'm super happy. So thank you.
If you want good food, head to Fleur's Instagram. I'm always like, what is Fleur having now? It's like something delicious. And again, like I'm always like, how does she do it? Like, there's all these delicious ingredients, but you make it look so easy and simple. Like,
it is actually really easy.
you're having like grilled mushrooms with,
oh yeah,
you know what, then you're having.
I'm just hungry. Yeah, I'm just always hungry. I think that's it. I just love my food. It just all comes, but it's, you know, I just refuse to eat boring food. You know, it has to be tasty. Yeah,
it's great.
I can't do that. I don't live to just live. It needs to be a bit, you know, tasty as well, for sure.
Well, it looks it. You know, gents, have you got any other final questions?
No, I think generally the idea of educating, especially young people, is super important with diabetes. I think, you know, the other age group is that sort of college, university age, where I remember my friend who had type 1 diabetes going out on a night out. You know, we didn't really think about it at the time. You know, we would just go out drinking, and we never thought what was happening to Minty's blood glucose. We knew he had diabetes, but we didn't really. He would have like something with Coke Zero, or he would ask if they had Diet Coke or whatever. But, you know, we didn't think too much of it. But, you know, I've seen now, as he's got older, and he's a little, you know, he's a couple of years younger than me, so he's probably 40 now. He's in better shape and health now than when he was younger, because he understands things now. He exercises more, he eats better. But the fact that is, you can still have things. He's always drinking wine. I see his Facebook. He's a banker in Singapore, so he lives a good life, right? But the fact is, you know, I think it's about education for especially the guys in their sort of teenage, early 20s. Of you can still have a life. Yeah. You just have to be slightly more careful about how you go about it.
Oh, I 100% agree. It's you know, like going out and drinking. I do that, but I do know how to manage it. You know.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it can be really dangerous. So the one thing about getting too intoxicated on alcohol or drugs, the problem is that you forget to measure your blood sugars, and you won't feel a hypo or a hyper. And there's plenty of people that slip into a coma because of that. So that's where, you know, you have to draw a line, like enjoy, but yeah, who wants to lie down in the street anyway, face down? No one, I guess. But yeah, with that culture of binge drinking, diabetes doesn't fit in with that. That's for sure. So moderation, nice and boring, huh?
Yeah,
doesn't have to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's so interesting. Education in everything. And I mean, we complain about social media, but it is such a great platform to share. And like, I mean, just now that I understand like blood glucose more, like when you post, like, you know, you were swimming and you were a 4.7, I was like, oh, wow. And then it just all made so much more sense. And I just love seeing how you just fit it into your lifestyle. And like you say, it doesn't need to slow you down or make you different or anything like that. And just having role models out there and people you can learn from I think it's so important. And that's what we strive to do here. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. And yeah, I mean, people who know you will know you've gone through a lot of back surgeries, and that is another topic which I think would be really great to talk to you about, because I mean, and how that affected, I mean, that's so much stress on you and everything in terms of, you know, your diabetes as well. But for the sake of this episode, I think we will end it here, but we might get you back for that. Was
next time, guys.
Yeah, next time.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And you'll offer a delicious lunch somewhere, I think.
Yeah, tamarind special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some nice crab. So excited.
Sounds
I know.
Good.
So good. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank
you too.
So much. All right. Take care.
Bye.